podcast number 10 at Indie Pub News with Michael Gallagher. Today, we're featuring Uvi Poznansky, a prolific USA Today best-selling indie author that has had consistently great sales. Her formula for success? Follow her example and gather 1 million, you got it, 1 million readers per year to your blog and spend 50% of your time marketing and 50% writing. Here she is. Good morning, USA Today best-selling author Uvi Poznansky. You know, I've admired your storytelling skills and marketing abilities for some years now, Uvi. It's so nice to talk to you today.
Yeah, I think I've even reviewed some of your books and enjoyed reading them. Yeah,
yes.
So we do have a history here.
Yeah. Could you tell us what made you jump into the thriller genre from your more lyrical, poetic writing?
I get asked that a lot. I don't feel that I need to confine myself within one genre or another. I think life is many genres as a whole. One moment it may be funny, comedy kind of a thing, and another moment it can be thriller, and another moment it's a love story. So it all depends on the story that I want to tell. Even within the story, the new release that I just had out, Confidential, in a sense, it's a little bit similar to my horror story, Twisted, in which the protagonist wakes up in hell. In Confidential, she wakes up realizing that she is in coma.
Coma made me think of a film I saw in my late teens. It was called Johnny Got His Gun, a fictionalized true story released in the early 70s and popularized by, oddly enough, a Metallica famous song called One. Do you know it?
No, I don't know the song.
Well, it was quite a famous anti-war film at the time. It didn't make the big screen, It was just on the small screens. And it featured a soldier with his front lobe blown off and his legs and arms missing. And the doctors around him, he's sitting on a table in the beginning of the film. The doctors around him are discussing him. And they assume he's brain dead. And then the movie develops, so he's lying there listening to all this conversation, and the movie is him talking in the background, listening to what they're saying and commenting. And one day, he has a nurse that develops an affection for him. You live everything through his thoughts of this. And then one day, he remembers Morse code. And in a very powerful scene, the nurse brings him to a climax, and he taps SOS with his head. But what's made the connection for me somehow is your book, Confidential, starts with this kind of potent imagery. Would you care to comment?
Sure. Actually, when we talk about imagery for this book, for the most part, when she is in coma, she cannot see. So all her descriptions of what is happening around her, the things that she perceives, are based only on sound and smell, because these are the senses that are still in the animal brain, in our brain, the area that has not been destroyed yet. And so that was the challenge in writing this book. Let's say for half of the story, all her descriptions are either audio input or smell input. And the only thing that she can describe as vision would be her memories or her hallucinations that are influenced by the morphine that she is getting.
Interesting. How did you come to know so much about gaming and virtual reality, Uvi?
I have quite a checkered past, so to speak. I have 2 master's degrees. One of them is in architecture, and the other one is computer science from the University of Michigan. And I even taught in both of these areas. For me, it's just a natural expansion on what I know and then what I research in particular for the story.
Makes the book very timely, with 5G coming up and virtual reality really going to be much more plausible. So in the same vein, where did you come up with the idea for virtual police investigations? If you let me just elaborate a bit. I was reminded of Isaac Asimov's Inspector Daniel in The Caves of Steel and other books of his. Daniel is an investigator who can read the emotions of humans. It's very unusual because he's a robot. And your virtual police investigation reminded me of the science fiction writer's character. Comment?
Well, it's not a police that is investigating it virtually. It's Michael, who is a software engineer, much like I was.
It is an investigation. It's like a police investigation.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a murder investigation.
Mm-hmm.
The idea just comes to him, which is why it comes to me. Basically, I have the character kind of lurking within me, and whatever he's thinking comes into my mind as well. It's a natural thing for him.
What you're just saying makes me think or wonder whether you consider yourself a planner or a pantser when you're writing.
Oh, I'm definitely a pantser. To me, writing is like at the beginning of the book, when I start writing it, it's like opening a door into a dark room and shining a flashlight into it and stepping into that room in the skin of the character and discovering whatever he is discovering, he or she might be discovering. And then from scene to scene, you just go with a flashlight and discover more and more things. And it's not until at least half the book has been written that I start planning towards the end. I start figuring out what the end might be and leading the story to that end.
Okay. I think that's really interesting because I feel the same way about writing, but sometimes I write myself into a corner. Has that ever happened to you?
It didn't happen to me, no. As I said, it's a transition kind of a thing. It's not that during the whole process I'm blind. No, I start seeing the end at some point, and then I start putting obstacles in the path of the protagonist so that he or she might stumble across these obstacles, but still lead them towards the end.
Your characters, for instance, Ash or Michael, are young people, Uvi. How do you keep their dialogue so fresh and untainted? Or how do you keep in touch with your writerly young person?
Let me think what I can tell you. What I can tell you is the dialogue is a natural thing for me. Dialogue it's like, let's say you had an argument with somebody, with your wife, with your husband, with your friend, with your boss, and at the time you didn't have it in you to answer boldly, to answer what you really think. Now, when you are in front of the computer or the page, now you have your opportunity to answer. And once you answer as that character, then you turn the tables and you become the other character, the one who spoke to you, and you have to give that character the best line that he or she might want to write. And so it goes, the ping pong goes on. You jump from one skin to another, the skin of this character or the skin of the other character, and give them the best line that you can think of with which they can win the argument.
Okay, on a slightly different topic, some of your writing recently, it's sort of titillating. There's titillating undertones, and I was impressed by the light touch you used to sexually charge the relationships between your characters. Such a thin tightrope to walk. How do you manage to keep that charge in the form of fascination and attraction as opposed to arousal and stimulation?
Let me think about that, because I think that in all my books there is some romantic touch, and it's never a sexual touch. It's more the yearning of the heart. The closer you come to the other person whom you like, whom you love, the more charged the relationship becomes, the more sensual the conversation becomes, the touch and the moves. So I don't see it as something new to my writing. I had it, for example, in my biblical series, historical fiction with a modern touch, the David Chronicles, in which he had a relationship with several women, of course, and he also had this love for the wife of his soldier, Bathsheba. So even there, I had this titillating relationship going on for most of the book.
Well, you certainly succeed at doing it. And also, you succeed at writing both male and female lead characters. Could you reflect on the difference for you as a writer?
You know, once the character takes over, I don't even think about it. It's like I am a man. I am either David in the David Chronicles, or I am Lot's wife in Twisted, or I am Ash as needs be. I like to write in first-person voice, because that's my invitation to the reader to step into the skin of the character and to experience everything that the character feels or touches or smells or moves through. And that's the most direct way of bringing you not only to a different time and place, but mostly into the skin of a new character.
Interesting. You know, reading your stuff makes me think of a long time ago. I used to study literature when I was in my 20s, and Shakespeare has his foils, and Your Murdered Woman contrasts, as a result, highlights important aspects of your subtle relationship between Michael, Ash, and Lace. Could you comment?
Well, there are some certain parallels between Lace, who is the murdered victim in this story, and she's murdered from page 1, to Ash, who has been attacked several months ago, and she can relate to what Lace has gone through because she was attacked. She drank something that made her unable to respond to her attacker, and then she went into coma, which is something I explore in book 1. And this relationship between the two of them makes her want to avenge not only the fact that she was attacked, because she doesn't know the name of her attacker, and she won't know it for several more books throughout the series, but she wants to avenge what happened to Lace so that in some way it gives her the satisfaction that attackers cannot go, without punishment. And that is the reason why she becomes so brave towards the end of the story and why she takes such risks in order to uncover who murdered Lace.
Boy, difficult subject, that forced sexual occurrences. You really treat it very sensitively and very well. If I can move on to something else, you've already sort of answered it several times, but I want to ask it anyway. Ash has an emotional abruptness in her dialogues. Did this trait change as you wrote the book? It's sort of, again, this planner-panster thing. Because I noticed, or I felt, it became more, she was more abrupt later in the book.
If you're talking about Coma Confidential, I use short sentences with her as much as I can because they're the most direct. They punch you in the guts. There are no ifs and buts about them. I think in Virtually Lace, I didn't yet develop this trait in her. But in Coma Confidential, I think she's quite succinct from the beginning because I didn't want her to sound like a university professor. And she is struggling to learn her name, learn who she is, and she sets her goal to wake up and walk out of the hospital. And these things, they don't need any long passages to develop. They are, as I said, just like a punch in the gut. That's what she wants.
Okay, I'm going to move on to something different here. Your blog is a kind of genius affair, Uvi. What concrete steps could you suggest to aspiring writers about how to build a following?
Well, this is exactly the heart of my promotion effort, is my blog. I write posts on my blog almost daily. Every day I put out something, and it could be anything. It could be just quoting a passage from the book, or it could be telling you the backstory of what happened to the character or where the inspiration came to write the book. Or it could be one of my art pieces, sculpture, a painting. I don't divide myself. I don't divide things that are only pertinent to my writing and other things that are only pertinent to my art. I throw it all into the mix and let the visitor, the viewer, the listener, just pick and choose what they want. It could be also an audio clip because all of my books are in audio. And I really enjoy listening to the voice of the characters, not just in my own head, but coming through the narration of wonderful first-rate voice actors. So, and then from there, I put a little teaser either on Facebook or on Twitter or Goodreads, any place that I participate in social media. And they all link back to my blog, which is the pounding heart of my reach to the reader.
And how many people do you have on your blog following you?
I think that I have at least 1 million visitors per year.
Boy. That's quite impressive, yeah. Well, it's very interesting. I'm not surprised at all. I wonder if you have any suggestions about marketing books.
The best suggestion?
Yes.
Write well.
Yeah, write well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about succinct.
How much time do you spend on marketing and, writing in your blog as opposed to just writing your literature?
I would say about 50-50.
About 50-50. Boy, that's interesting. Yeah. A lot of people say you should do marketing only 20% of the time, but more and more people are saying more is necessary.
Well, I think that when you are an indie writer, you are wearing so many hats, and especially when I lead a lot of efforts with other authors. For example, box sets. You probably know that I have developed several box sets over the years, A Touch of Passion, Love in Times of War, At Odds with Destiny, and each one of them is with a team that I have hand-selected, a team of authors who each one contributes a novel. So all these efforts, they cannot be done with a 20% investment in time.
Do you have any other projects you'd like to tell us about?
Other projects. I can only say that I do a lot of art.
I meant in your writing, something that's coming up.
Yeah, I'm just starting to write the third book in this Ash suspense series, and it's going to be called A Heartbeat Away. It's going to be a medical thriller.
That's very interesting. I've really enjoyed talking to you today, Uvi, and that's about, we're hitting at about the time limit I want to have. And I'd like to thank you very much, and maybe set up something in the future. Would it be possible to talk to you in the future?
Absolutely, Michael. Thank you so much for having me.
listening. Get moving by taking a gander at Uvi's blog every day. It'll really get you fired up. Why not pick up one of her books today, too? And hey, don't forget to check Uvi Poznansky out on Facebook and Twitter. And sign up for her inspirational, wildly active mailing list on her blog. The links are on the podcast page. See you soon.